Hello, thank you for joining me. And I wanted to have this week's topic be a pretty serious one because it's come up several times in the last few months. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about, especially when they have good intentions and they really want what's best for their horse. But sometimes I'm going to say the human factor and human emotions can get in the way. And so this week's topic is talking about how anger is interfering with your horsemanship. And a lot of times we don't often think of what we're doing as coming from this, crazy, angry, over the top place. But for a lot of people, what they don't realize is there is a certain degree of expectation or assumption in what I talked about in last week's video that they are carrying forth. And so when the horse doesn't do what is expected, what is hoped, what is planned, what is whatever, then there is often this reaction, this emotional response from the human where they're not even thinking about what their response is. It's just in them and however they cope or deal with things. And an example was a horse who, when I brought him, had shown indications he was very comfortable rearing, flying backwards, running away sideways, all this sort of stuff, which is common in a lot of horses who are defensive towards pressure in humans, especially when you go to trailer load. So we've been working on a variety of scenarios and having lots of conversations and helping him learn to slow down and think through things and to have every time he try and participate in a willing and reasonable manner that it's acknowledged with a release of pressure, which is a huge one. And I think was a very new experience for him because he's made huge changes. So we've reintroduced the trailer, and yesterday was the first time. And this is one of those scenarios where, as we reintroduced the trailer, it wasn't about asking him to load. It was addressing his honest response as far as just the general proximity of where did his breathing start to change? Where did his face become tight and tension lines appear, under his eye or around his eye and his muzzle area? Where did his ears go rigid and his movement become very stiff? And helping him work through those things. And so as the session progressed and eventually we made our way closer and closer to the trailer, my goal was that I could get his brain to think into the trailer, because when I met him, everything about him was thinking about everything except the trailer, avoiding the pressure the trailer was creating, and probably previous experiences in the way in which I assume people loaded him or had to get big and dramatic and sort of chase him into the trailer or winch him into the trailer or flag him into the trailer, whatever it was. And I'm sure there was a variety of things because he had passed through multiple homes in a relatively short time. It wasn't leading to a soft and willing experience as far as on his end, because it always led to this continuous pressure cooker, if you will. So yesterday we played and he tried a variety of things, and 1/100th of a 16th of his initial avoidance or defensiveness, and every time he would go to think backwards in the old behaviors and the old patterns, he'd stop himself, and then he would try something else, and then he could stop himself. And so you could see this progression to where, now that we had these tools and how he communicated, that he could try and he could search. And so once he was able to let go of all these other considerations and avoiding the trailer, and finally acknowledge the trailer and think into the trailer, we stopped. And his owner was really honest. And she said, as she was watching this scenario, she was realizing she was reaching a state of agitation and frustration and defensiveness. And she crossed her arms, and, had these postures and this feeling and emotion coming from within her that she realized, one, she didn't like that was in her, but two, in really as a honest self-assessment moment of saying, wow, seeing this behavior in my horse triggers this in me. If I had been holding the lead rope, if I had been trying to help him in this scenario, I don't think I could have helped him, because I would have unintentionally gotten in my own way because of the level of judgment and critique and true, honest anger of, why don't you just get in the trailer? And so we talked about what is it in these moments where the horse is showing this concern, where I can stay emotionally neutral, we'll say, because it's not about me. Whatever it is, whatever we're presenting, whatever scenario we're experiencing, whatever conversation we're having, I try and explain to people, this is not about if I can get the horse to do X, Y, and Z. This is not about how much I can accomplish with the horse. It has nothing to do with me. This is about me seeing a scenario and saying, how do I support the horse so that he can, and then fill in the blank, whatever it is, whether it's thinking through it or searching or trying or letting go of defensiveness or fear or becoming curious and interested, whatever all these scenarios are. But none of it really has to do anything with like my self-worth or my ability or my emotions. All of that stuff is put to the side. And I know for a lot of people that get involved with horses because of that warmth and that softness and that, ideal, we'll call it romantic perspective of what the human horse partnership and relationship is going to be like. And then reality sometimes is pretty severe when we start experiencing all of these less than ideal moments with our horse, and it's not quite as warm and fluffy as we had initially thought it might be. And so, this is a huge topic. I really, really wish people would take the time to be honest about themselves. And again, not even out of self-critique, just out of honest self-assessment and awareness, because so many times people are communicating and coming from a place without even mentally thinking it or trying to convey it, but it's coming from a place of aggressiveness, of severity, of it's not working, so I'm going to add more pressure. And I'm not talking about you going wild and crazy with, all kinds of whips and contraptions or anything like that. What I'm talking about is that emotional tension that comes up inside of you when something isn't working the way you wanted it to. And how does that influence how you're communicating with the horse, your energy you're using towards the horse, your patience to address and help the horse as he goes through his checklist, which I've talked about in other videos. And so many of these scenarios, we are actually adding, we'll say, fuel to the fire because of our anger. Even if we're not thinking, oh, I'm angry, we have this tension, we have a tightness, we have an anticipation, we have a judgment, we have a critique. And these are all stemming from those places inside of us where we're angry and frustrated because it is not going like how we wanted, expected, hoped, anticipated, whatever the version is that we had in our minds. So the next time you head out to your horse, I just want you to slow down and start to notice where are the triggers in you, where if your horse comes up with something unexpected, where are your emotions? What is your physical tension in your body? And how is that influencing the communication with your horse? So lots of stuff to think about. I'd love to hear your thoughts below, and I will see you next week. Thank you for joining me.